Welcome. The Improv 2 Saga presents Dagger of Entropy, Chapter 2. Red droplets began to strike the floor as Juno looked grimly into his victim. With a final breath leaving his body, the senator fell to the ground as Juno released the dagger from his stomach. He collapsed onto the floor. The brunette young girl, chained up, looked at Juno with relief and shock as he looked back at her. The same dark look which he had glared at the senator with as he held the whispering blade in his mind. He paused for a long time. She remained silent, staring at him, unsure of what his next action was going to be. He shook his head briefly. His eyes blinked several times as he stared down at the dark knife. Not a drop of blood was on it. He paused, examining it quickly before he resheathed it, wrapping it back inside its cloth. "Juno, how did you know I was here?" the young woman asked. He looked back up at her. "I didn't. I had no idea." He placed the wrapped dagger back into his belt. He rushed up to her. She stood up, the chain still wrapped around her leg, as they embraced for a moment. He stepped back, running his fingers through her dark hair. "I've got to get you out of here now." He searched the senator's body quickly, and he found a key and opened the lock to the chain that was holding her to the bed. "I haven't seen you since I was a child," the young girl said. Juno nodded. I've thought about you all the time, Sophia. But right now I've got to get you out of here. Come on." He grabbed her hand and rushed her back up the stairs. The stairs seemed to be longer than they were before. Juno, he could feel the burning in his legs as the drag of Sophia behind him. They stopped at the wall of the secret passage. He reached up to the torch that was to twist it, but paused a moment. "What are you waiting for?" she asked. He quickly put his hands to his lips. Taking the hilt of his gladius, he tapped with force on the wall. He prayed and listened. There was no sound on the other side. He tapped again. Again, no sound. He whispered back to her, Sophia, "It should be safe." He twisted the torch, and the wall slid open. Taking her by the hand again, he inched his way out, looking from both sides to see if anyone was around. "It's clear, we should go." "We should report this to the guards." He said. "No," Juno replied. "We don't know whose side they're on right now. I don't think that my uncle fell in battle. I believe he was killed. I can't prove it, and I don't have any facts, but that's what I'm thinking at this moment. How do you... Shh. Again, he pushes his finger up to his lips. We can't talk now. We've got to get out of here first. He twisted the torch on the other side. The wall slid closed. Slowly he crept, with her behind him. Down the hall he took this look to the right. The shadows flickered in the distance. Lights danced. Slowly he crept, step by step by step, hiding in as much darkness as he could, making sure Sophia was behind him, making sure she stayed quiet. He came to a corner, slid his back, and looked down the hall. Wait here. He rushed to the other side, again placing his back against the wall. Tilting to his side, he looked to see if anyone was coming. He gave her a wave, and she quickly rushed. Try not to make too much noise. Sophia nodded. Again, he took her by the hand, walking her down the hall. He stopped for a moment. Wait. He could hear footsteps approaching. In the distance, he saw a light coming up the shadow of the stairway. Hide. Where? Sophia asked, gesturing that there was nothing around them. He pointed behind a tapestry. There. You hide there. What about you? I'll figure something out. He looked around. There was nothing. He stopped. No, there was something, he realized. Looking over the balcony to the patio below. That was his only route. He looked back at the darkness. The footsteps approached. He could see two figures coming towards him. He quickly slid over the edge, his fingers gripping the ivory stone rim. The two guards walked, and as luck would have it, they paused. They began speaking about trifle daily things, about what the Empire was going to be like once the Empire's line was destroyed, and once the Senate would take over. The minutes seemed like hours, as Juno could feel the burning sensation in his hands and his fingers. The weight of his gear was pulling him down. He felt like he could hold on no longer. The guards continued their route, leaving what seemed like a snail's pace. Juno began to pull himself up. His hilt caught the rim and made a deep scratch. What was that? The other guard said. Damn it. Juno lowered himself back down. His arms strained and burning again. Guards rushed back in, their blades drawn, looking around. The sweat from Juno's palms began to force him to lose his grip. He began to slide. What was now his full fingers became only his fingertips, securing him from falling between the brush below. I don't see anything. Might have been the trees outside. The guards left. Desperately, Juno tried to to muster the strength to pull himself up. But he kept sliding back. His tired, weary arms just couldn't pull his weight anymore. Sophitia, leaving her hiding position, rushed towards him, desperately trying to grab him and lift him up. But she was too weak. They tussled back and forth. He slid. Gripping his arms, she fell forward. Only her waist keeping them from falling down. I don't think I can hold you much longer, she managed to grasp out. Juno looked to his left. There was a tree. He hang on just a little bit longer. He began shifting his weight back and forth, trying to build momentum. Juno, I can't hold you. Just a little bit longer. He swung back and forth. Finally, I was like, okay, now let go. She released him. He slung to his left, barely grabbing the tree. He let out a grimace as his arm rushed into the branches. Can you make it? I don't know. Try. I don't think I can. Try, I'll catch you. It's not far. Sophitia herself slid out to the side. Her petite hands grabbing the rim. Inch by inch, she tried to make her way. Juno extended his one good arm to reach out for her. I can't reach, you're too far. Just a little bit closer, he said. Swing like I did. I should be able to grab you. She did. Back and forth. He said, okay, let go. Now! She released. Her momentum was barely enough. Juno's entire body left the limb that he was sitting on. His left arm barely hanging on to a small branch as he almost dove off, grabbing both of her arms and mustering all the remaining strength he could to lift her up. Once she secured herself, he nodded. Let's go. We should be able to be fairly clear from here. The two lower themselves down off to the tree. Once at the bottom, outside in the gardens, Juno stopped, looking around. All right. He pointed at several guards holding torches. As long as we keep their eyes on them and don't make much movement and noise, they shouldn't be able to notice us. Sophitia nodded. Stay low. As they crouched behind the brush, they began to make their way out. with me. I think I know a way that we can get you out of here without being noticed. But you may not like it. He showed her outside the gardens. There was a small traveling gondolier's boat. He set her inside. She held on to his hands before he released. Juno, I want you to come with me. He shook his head. I can't. No one saw the senator leave, or you. No one can see me tonight. I'll have to make something up. But for right now, I've got to stay here. I'm sorry. He paused for a moment. The same look in his eyes. The same disturbing, piercing glare that she saw before. He looked back into his belt, releasing the small blanket covering the dagger. She was scared for a moment, uncertain, as he pulled the cloth apart and stared at the dark hilt and stared back at her. What do you... Take this, he said. You might need it. He covered the dagger back up and handed it to her. Going to the end of the boat, he pushed through the gravel as she sailed off. She could do nothing but stare and watch him as he waved at her. Neither one of them took their eyes off each other before either could no longer be seen. Juno turned around and began to head up back into the garden. Still he crept, making sure he was not noticed. And he managed to find his way out again. As the boat sailed gently across the waterway, with just enough movement to keep it going, it stopped across a small stony beach, which Sophitia exited. A small rocky monastery was ahead of her as she began to approach it. Several shadowy figures appeared, all looking at her. She made no movement and no gesture, but they had surrounded her, and they slowly moved in, all pointing at her. Thank you, and good night.